That's a lot of dinks.
When you look at Roosevelt Island today, sitting quietly between Manhattan and Queens, it's hard to imagine that this thin strip of land was once one of New York's biggest experiments. A place where planners tried to design a better way for people to live. It was a place built on hope, on imagination, and on the belief that if you think hard enough about how people move, how people live, and what they need, you can create something new. Roosevelt Island wasn't an accident. It was a vision someone had in their mind and then worked to make that vision real. But long before it became Roosevelt Island, the land was known as Blackwell's Island. And back in the 1800s, it wasn't a neighborhood. It was a place the city used to hide things. The island held a smallpox hospital, a workhouse, a penitentiary, and an asylum. It was where the city sent people it didn't want to deal with, out of sight and out of mind. But by the mid-1900s, New York was changing. The city was growing fast, people needed homes, and planners were starting to think differently about how the city should work. They looked at this forgotten island and asked a simple question: what if we turned it into something good? In the late 1960s and early 1970s, New York had a real problem. People needed affordable housing, but the city was running out of space. So planners came up with a bold idea: build a brand new community on Roosevelt Island, a place where regular people could live comfortably, safely, and affordably, right next to Manhattan. So they created a model neighborhood. It was almost like a small town inside of the city. The idea was simple: mixed income housing, quiet streets, open space, and a community built with intention. It was a human idea, a hopeful idea, the kind of idea that makes you believe in city planning again. The design of Roosevelt Island was different from anything else in New York. It was built to feel calm, peaceful, slower than Manhattan. The planners wanted wide walkways, green spaces, and a neighborhood where cars didn't dominate everything. So they pushed the traffic underground. They kept the streets quiet and made the island feel like a place where you could breathe. They imagined families working, families walking, kids playing, neighbors talking, and people living side by side without the noise and pressure of the city around them. It was a vision of what city life could be if you took your time and thought about the people first. Then came the tram. When the Roosevelt Island tram opened in 1976, it became one of the coolest rides in New York, floating above the East River, sliding past the Queensboro Bridge, giving you a view of Manhattan that didn't feel real. The tram wasn't just transportation, it became a symbol, a sign that Roosevelt Island was supposed to be different, a place with its own identity, its own rhythm, and its own way of connecting the city. A lot of the vision actually worked. The island stayed quiet, families moved in, the housing stayed affordable for decades, the walkways stayed peaceful, the parks became loved, the tram became iconic, and the community became tight. People who grew up there talk about it like it was a small town floating next to Manhattan. The kids played outside, neighbors knew each other, and felt overall safe. It felt human. The vision didn't become perfect, but it became real enough to matter. Of course, New York is New York, and even the best ideas run into real-world problems. So some of the buildings aged faster than expected, maintenance costs went up, some of the architecture felt cold and boxy, the no-car rule was hard to enforce. The island needed more sources than planners expected, and the city's financial problems in the 1970s slowed down development. Roosevelt Island didn't become the perfect model city planners imagined, but it didn't fail either. It became something in the middle, a place with a vision that didn't fully land, but still mattered. The real story of Roosevelt Island isn't about buildings or budgets. It's about people having a vision and actually trying to make it real. Someone looked at a forgotten island full of hospitals and prisons and imagined families walking on quiet streets, kids playing in parks, and people living peacefully between two boroughs. That's the part that matters. And even if the plan wasn't perfect, even if the island changed over time, the idea itself was beautiful. And it was proof that humans can imagine something better and then build it. Today, Roosevelt Island is calm, clean, and it feels different. It's a mix of old buildings, new towers, parks, and quiet streets. It's still not Manhattan, it's still not Queens, but it's something in between. A place with its own identity, a place with its own community. And when you walk by Main Street or ride the tram or sit by the water, you can still feel the original version. A small dream in the middle of a big city that somehow became real. Roosevelt Island is a reminder that not every idea has to be perfect to matter. Sometimes beauty is in the attempt, in the vision, in the courage to try something new. It may not have become a model city planners imagined, but it became a real community. A peaceful place, a human place, and in a city as loud and fast as New York, that alone makes it special.